All right. So can you talk me through how you got into sport?
So sport has always been my passion, right? And I guess my journey has been a bit different than other people I know, most people I know, because most people I met in sports world were encouraged from the start, right? They have a solid support system around them, parents encouraging, everything is great. And I was kind of the opposite. I was actively discouraged from going down this path because sports was not seen in my house as, a way forward, right? And then it was always like, oh no, always the excuse like you're too small, or that's not the right thing for you, or there's always an excuse. And for me, as I got deeper into the sports world and working with athletes and working with colleagues and in the sports psychology field, that difference really stood out, right? Like for example, when I practiced kung fu and I qualified for the regional championship, my parents didn't allow me to compete. Right? It's too violent. You're not going to do it. It's too dangerous. That. But the thing is that made me only more determined. But also left me with lots of insecurities, right? So I guess that's all my interest in sports psychology, right? But then, didn't stop me, right? I went on my life practicing like sports like rugby 15s and eventually became a tennis coach, right? Tennis has been my absolute passion. And now I volunteer to coach children with special needs at my club. And well, over the years, I've expanded my sporting education, earning diplomas from the Barça Innovation Hub, from the Barça Football Club. And more recently, from the Nadal Academy, they do have a Rafa Nadal School of Sports that is together with the University of Madrid of UAX. That's the name of the academy. So through it all, never lost my love for sport, right? It's been like a fire, a passion, really a way of life. When you have it, you just have it, right? So that's been my journey. And now I have taken on a role as mentor of sorts for young athletes during the first tournaments. And I find this more fun, right? And more than professional. And my focus is on psychological safety, building safe self-belief, and most importantly, helping them develop critical thinking skills. And I believe these are key for young athletes, really, for growth on and off the field.
So normally when I have athletes on, they have a strong support system that's been kind of pushing them through the system. When you don't have a support system like that, what drives you?
That's a good question. You see, like I think it's just love and passion, right? It's something you really like to do. It's something you really, really want. And then people will always say, like, especially like, I'm not very tall, and for tennis, you should be tall. But then you see stories, right? And you see, like, Justin and I was not tall, right? That's never stopped her. Justin Paolini is not tall either, right? So Jasmine, sorry. And so it's all about if you want something, right? Nothing is going to stop you, right? It's all about determination. And I think that's been something key in my career, right? I've always done everything with a lot of passion and determination. I always wanted to do what I did. There's nothing I said, like, I went for it just because I had to. I never really had to, right? I went to the path that I wanted. And that's what I think, even when people are not, sometimes they're discouraged, oh, that's not the right role for you. Are you sure it's not the right role for you? Maybe it's not about the role. Maybe it's you're taking an approach that is not the right one. Maybe you don't have the right support. So that's what I like bringing to business as well, right? If someone is like, okay, this is like, you're not meeting your targets. Why are you not meeting the targets? Is it really because you're not good for this, or you're not being trained, or you're not being guided? And that's most of the times, that's usually the case, right? Like you need to find someone to guide you. You need to find a system that works for you to help you guide yourself as well and find a path.
So when we talk about support systems like parental support, coaching support, specific to coaching, what can coaches do to effectively create that positive team environment, that positive support system for individuals who might not have that from a family member or any other source?
Well, this is my favorite topic, right? Because culture is just everything, right? It's not just for coaches or leaders to see that. It's about making the team understand the concept, right? If someone is not being supported, right, like they need to understand how important it is to have a supporting community, right? Because for me, at the time, asking questions was not right, right? Like it's like, oh no, because I was used not to having support, and when I found myself with a system of support around me, I was very confused because the perception completely changes. right? So it's not everything relying on myself, but also around me. So it's like having to trust other people, and just having, if you trust, right, it means that there's some safety, but it takes a while to create that, right? So for me, the core job of a coach is to build a functioning community for performance. That's how I would describe it. And developing a positive culture for a community is all about how safe the members feel in it, right? And safety is the trigger for positive culture. The team needs to feel they are in a safe space, safe from judgment, safe to perform, safe to speak out. And if a team is safe, they'll bring themselves to work, right? I mean, I hear this kind of concept a lot. Or be able to be on oneself at work. And this is great. But that only happens if someone feels safe to do so, which means there must be a relationship of trust. And that takes time sometimes, right? And especially with people that never had a system of support in the past, it's something that they'd be more reticent to get straight into it, right? So we have to build that muscle. And then trust does not mean they have to be in full agreement with everything, right? That's just not realistic. But a leader has to share with the team clear goals and expectations, and it has to facilitate bi-directional open communication. It's not just telling things, right? It's like receiving. And the team has to feel part of it. They have to be involved, ask them for feedback, make them feel part of it, that their opinion is valued, and agree on the way they're going to interact with each other. And it pretty much comes down to communication and mutual agreement, right? So the fuel of a team is communication, or the fuel of a relationship really is communication. Are we communicating the right way? Am I getting what I need in terms of information, right? Because information goes always on it's about the you, right? About who receives the information. And then obviously efforts towards positive language, which is very important as well.
How do you see coaching communication differ between coaches of team sports and individual sports?
So when it becomes individual sports, right, it becomes way more personal. It tends to become more personal, right? Um, and that's great. There is a lot of one-on-one. So there is a lot like you and you. For bigger teams, for teams usually, and then by the way, that has to work. And it's often, you can see in sports like tennis, individual sports, the relationship, like, there's a change of coaches, and it's just because the communication is not working. The way of working is like, okay, we're not agreeing. That's fine. Then find somebody else that works with you. And that is very, very, though, methodic, how you choose who you're going to work with. When it comes to team sports, it's about two things. It's the individual. So you have to get to know the motivations of the individual, motivations personal, just for themselves, and for the team. So there's two different types. It's a bit more complex because you have to find time to get to know the team, support the team, be there with them, understand them, but also as a team, right? All together as a dynamic, there's different behaviors, right? I behave this way as a person, myself personally. When I'm in a team, I'm part of something, right? It's not all about me now. So it's a different dynamic. And that's when it completely changes, right? So I mean, it's not that it's too different, right? But like, if you're used to working in a team, there's an extra complexity of making sure that the team is working. Like, for example, conflict. There's always going to be conflict in a team, always, right? And how do you deal with conflict, right? When you're by yourself, right? It's a one-on-one, right? There's a conflict. It's the coach and it's the individual, and that's it. But there is a conflict within the team. The leader or the coach has to step in and understand. Do you have to step in all the time? Not necessarily, right? Sometimes they can solve things themselves, and that's perfect. But in the situation where they are not, then you need to step in, because that's going to affect the rest of the team dynamic, right? So it's an extra effort, I'd say, from putting energy into looking into the wider scope, how the team functions, how you want the team to function, and how does the team want the team to function. Because it's not just about you, right? It's just the whole team. How do they want to function? How do they want to work together? And you have to orchestrate it so it works, right? When it comes to the individual, it's way more getting to know, and it gets into a deeper psychological aspect, right, of their lives, because you really become it's more than a coach, right? It becomes more of a personal relationship as well, when you're spending so many hours together, and you really have to understand, okay, right? And sometimes, step back, right? You cannot be on top of that person because in a team, you have your own space. When we are in a one-on-one relationship, sometimes like, you know what, I need some space because you don't get the space. And sometimes the athlete needs some space, right? And whatever, in business context as well. Sometimes you need space. Okay, I give you space. And now we keep on working, right? Because we need to keep going. There is high expectations from athlete professionals, and they have to be met all the time, right? So it's a process, it's continuous. It's not like, here we go, this is the end of the road and that's it, I'm perfect. No, you're not, right? You might have won a tournament, here comes the next one. People are working towards becoming better. And the same in business, right? Like, okay, I have achieved my goal. The goal for the next quarter, for the next year, it's different. It's going to increase, or you're going to have to do something else. Then it's like, it becomes a period where you deflate a little bit, and then you have to pick off yourself up again and continue. And that's why it's very important that the coach or the leader manages the energy of the team as well, to make sure that it's just this process of high performance continues long term and not just short term.
Do you think that it's important for athletes to see themselves in their coaches? Or do you think that it should be more of a hierarchy relationship?
It is and it isn't. I mean, if we're talking about in terms of sporting achievements, going through the same experience, I mean, that's obviously helpful. And that is why many tennis players, for example, obviously I give tennis players because that's my universe. That's why many decide to work with the former tennis players that have won certain titles. They know how it feels. They have done it before. They understand exactly what goes through their head in key moments, right? But then when choosing a mentor or a coach, ultimately people seek guidance. Now, they could be looking for a role model or someone that can help them bring out the best version of themselves. But ultimately, they want someone to guide them in their high performance career, right? It's not just like, oh, you have felt the same thing as me. Great. I mean, having gone through the same experience, it helps. But you think of Rafa Nadal, for example, his coach was his uncle. And Tony was never a professional tennis player. But I was able to provide Rafa with the required guidance to bring out the best in him as an athlete. And Arina Sabalenka's coach, right? He only won a single ATP match, not title match in his career, but has been able to support her on the road to becoming number one in the world. So basically, it really depends on what the athlete needs or wants at a given point in time. Sometimes, like I think Djokovic wanted to have Murray, or talking tennis again, but it's been because they have been through the same experience and they feel that's what it's going to help them most at the time. And that's great. But more than hierarchy, I think the coach should be at the center rather than being at the top. Because it's just the new education model is the same, right? When I was little, school was like, okay, that's the teacher and you obey, end of, right? The way the new generations are educated are different. So there's a different education model. And it's way more interactive. And it's way more, and it just puts the teacher, right, or the coach at the center, right? Here I am in the center, and we are going to get this together, right? So it's not like here, this is like this because I say so, right? Now there's this challenging, right? Like, why is this so, and why, right? So there's questioning, and it's good that teacher brings on the dialogue, right? And say like, hey, let's open this for discussion, and it's just a different way of doing things, and we think it's working, right? That's what we believe. And for me, I love coaching that way, right? I love being at the center, sitting with my team and hear them interact and then challenge them as well, right? Like, what do you think? And just like, it's a lot, again, about bringing the critical thinking for them, right? And developing critical thinking, because that's what you want to do. When they are on the court or the pitch, you want them to think themselves. You cannot be there sitting behind them saying, do this, do that. No, they have to do that themselves. They have to come, to a stage in life where they can make their own decisions, and they have to be based on something, right? And something they have learned before and they have repeated before, so they have the muscle memory for it.
How did you get involved with Nadal's Academy?
Yeah, that was that was a pardon?
I said that's so cool.
It was cool. It was cool. So basically, I completed a diploma with the Rafa Nadal School of Sport on high performance sports psychology. And towards the end, I got invited to spend a few days at the academy in Mallorca. So I was able to experience firsthand how the academy works and how they promote excellence in the young athletes. So it's actually really interesting how high performance is perceived by different individuals, right? Some people have very different expectations, and it's so much about truly showing up and commitment. That's it, right? Because they have different levels, there's different people at different stages in their careers, in their lives. And it was really interesting to see how they cope with the demand, because it's very, very demanding, right? It's very demanding in a very positive environment, which I love, right? They also have a very clear set of values, right? So winning character, and this one is all about attitude, which obviously, many of them are teenagers who are there, right? Like trying to develop to start the career in tennis. So attitude is very important, right? Like that is a very key moment in their lives to be shaped, right? Competitive mentality is another value, which is about overcoming challenges. Intensity, right? When it's high demand, you have to show some intensity at all times, right? Mastering the game, obviously, and teaching and learning to compete, which is not just about winning, but about respecting the opponent. So it's those are the key values they have. And for me, I could say the key takeaway from my time at the academy, it's an intangible one, right? And it's what we talked about before, is the system of support that is built around the athletes, right? They are set up for success, as simple as that. And it's exactly what provides a safe environment that allows them to thrive. And I don't know if they understand, right? Like not all of them will understand that what they have, right? Because when you see it from the outside, it's just like very impressive, right? And I was just there observing. That was mainly my job, right? And you see, okay, you have this, and you can do this, and you can do that. Do they all take advantage of all the possibilities given? Not necessarily. And like from outside, it's like, oh, you're not taking advantage of this. I wish I had it, right? But then again, they have different realities, and it's different lives, and there's different ambition, right? Not everybody wants to become a professional tennis player, right? No, because some of them are aware, right, of capabilities, or the commitment was required, right? The sacrifice that is required. But it was fantastic to see that it was a very positive environment. Number one, that was what I really loved, being there every single day and showing up, right? Very positive environment, and it's just the non-stop possibilities. Everything that was offered to the athletes was absolutely incredible, really incredible.
What were some of the mental game takeaways of being at the academy?
I think in general, it's all, I think was the intensity one was quite interesting as well. Because, sometimes they must be tired, right? Like some people, they go to school, right? It's school and tennis and fitness, right? And it's a lot. That is a lot. And then when you show up there, there's no, you can be physically tired or mentally tired, but then you have to be there. And then you have to be there, but it's just not being present. You have to be there at a certain intensity. And that takes a lot, right? From someone mentally to say, okay, it's not like, okay, it's 9 a.m., I have to be here. No, it's 9 a.m., let's go, right? Like it's just, even if I'm tired, we're going to push through. And it's just that, I think that pushing constantly through, challenges, right? Because it's a challenge when one doesn't feel like doing something, right? And you have to push yourself. And going through that challenge and go like, I know I don't feel like it, I'm going to do it. And I think that part of the intensity value, that I'm like, why is the intensity a value? Because I was thinking like, is that even a value? Right? But I understand it now. In intensity, it's like, okay, you're showing up, but it's just not showing up. You're showing up to do something because you're committed to achieving X, Y, Z on this moment in time. Every day, right? Not just as a tournament, but every single day. And that is actually what makes you better. Because it does, right? Because you're really practicing is harder and harder every day. And it's just not showing up. It's just being there, but demonstrating your commitment by bringing the intensity of what is required.
How, along those lines, how do you coax greatness out of someone?
Well, I don't think greatness, I don't bring greatness, right? I think they bring it, if you see what I mean. Mostly about helping them exercise self-knowledge and critical thinking, right? When they have awareness on their own capabilities, limitations, and what to work on, then we can create a path to success together. Now, when I say limitations, I mean, there are two types of limitations, right? The ones that are permanent, there's nothing, something is never going to happen. But also there are temporal limitations, which allow for future improvements. And then we map out what that road looks like and focus on the process and not the end result. And it's so tempting to look at the end result, but the truth is that at the end of the road, might have more, it might have more than one path. And it's, of course, it's tempting to think, okay, results, but that is just a rush process, right? And many may say, oh, that's a fluffy concept, and they believe that results can have to be always immediate, but it's not as simple, because when we say process, when I say process, I'm not talking about a concept. It's not abstract. It has to be concrete and specific. So the process has to be broken down in actionable steps that are challenging but achievable. Like, effort is a non-negotiable. So it is not just about sticking to a plan. It's about sticking with it with conviction and being ready to demand more of oneself, understanding one's capabilities and limitations, which could be physical, tactical, mental, but also taking into consideration external factors, right? So yeah, I think that's mostly they bring it, right? They bring their greatness because that is theirs, right? It's in it. I just like try to make them aware of that greatness. But sometimes, we have our mental blocks as well. Like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to do that. I hate when people say that. Like, yes, you are. When people say challenge you, they you know what? You just like, I can. And even though if you're feeling, and that's actually a cue that I give some of my athletes, or when you feel like, no, I cannot do this, you're going to change the language. You're going to use positive language. And you're going to say, before doing it, you're going to say, I can. You get yourself into that, right? It's like, and I want you to physically say, I can. It's not, I can. Right? I want you to stand tall, right? And say, I can, loud and clear. And that's going to change your mindset. And I know it's a lot of exercise about it. I struggle myself, right, about these kind of things. But I do truly believe we start with positive language. It's going to bring more positive language and positive results. And it's just like bringing patience as well, because sometimes we're so rushed because we so need it for results. We just want them now, and we want everything. Oh, now we live in this culture of immediacy. Everything has to be right now. Everything has to be in the moment. But it's not like that all the time. Unfortunately, we are not all that incredibly talented. Things don't happen the way we want them to happen at the right time. So we have to be patient, and we have to be in control, right? We want to be in control. We have to be in control of our emotions first, right? So don't push things, like don't rush them. Like, of course, you're pushing by trying to be better, but then just be aware, where are you on that path to greatness, right? Am I, at the very beginning, in the middle, towards the end? What's missing, or what do I need to do to get to the next level? And that's it. But then that takes as well the exercise of patience, which is obviously a very challenging one.
When you're working with an athlete who is self-driven and who loves, for example, their own stats or their own data, how do you implement data into performance training?
Have to be careful about data in training, because sometimes there is so much that it's easy to get lost. So the main thing is going back to the goals that we have decided. What goals are we going to? What are the goals, right? That we have agreed, right? Because we're working with someone, we have to first of all agree, what are we going to work towards, right? What are the goals we want to achieve? Have we broken them down? And what needs to change, right? What are we working on? And I know people are obsessed with everything, and we cannot do everything at the same time, because right now we have so much data available, which is fantastic, but it's just very messy as well. Like, we need to be able to mine that data, understand what are we going to do with that, what's going to bring us, how's that data positive for us? Because I have a lot, I can improve this, I can improve that, I can improve that. Okay, how does that align to our goals? Does it have anything to do with the goals we have at the moment? No. Okay, then you know what? Maybe we look to that. Or does it have to do anything with what we want to work in the future? Okay, that's fine. Then we can move it, right? We can park it, and then we continue, and that's fine. But then, and I think that's a very good exercise, uh, of awareness, right? Like we cannot work on everything because we're going to get distracted. And we have to say, okay, we have determined to work on this and this and this goal. This is the agreement. Now, what is required to achieve it? What data is going to help us? Anything else is just noise. And then, if there's something that they want to work on in the future, fantastic. Parking lot, write it down, put it there, and align it to a goal that you want to achieve. And then we can discuss it when we are done with whatever we're working on at the moment. But I think it's so easy to get distracted with data because right now there's so much data available about so many things. But we have to definitely step down and step back and say, okay, what do I need at the moment, rather than just going for everything.
What do you think is the most important data point to track when you're looking at performance? And I know that sports specific data is normally what we're tracking, but is there one specific part of the data collection that is a precursor to success more so than others?
I think whatever really is helping us, whatever can be tracked a bit on, from the beginning to the end, right? Like, so we can be tracked from the beginning of the process to the end that we can see there's a change, right? So it just really depends. Because, I mean, in performance, it just really depends what the goals are for different athletes in different situations. So it's really hard to just like come down with a metric that is okay, perfect, right? Because results is what people are thinking at the end of the day. But you know what? It could be results. It could be results from the process that we have agreed on. And it doesn't mean like, winning a match, but it could be like increasing a certain percentage of, say, first serve, increasing the first serve percentage. That's already something that's really, really positive. Okay, fantastic. Going to help me in the future to achieve the result. Yes. Is it already there? No, it's just part of the process. Okay, it's just like, I think there's no universal metric for that, but it's just like in every sport, in every context, to have something that you can see you can improve a certain percentage in something, right? And go like, oh, you started here with this percentage and you ended here, towards the end of the working process. You ended here at 20% improvement. So whatever you can say that you agree it's an improvement, I think that's what would be, because it's really hard to break performance into specific metric.
When did you realize that you wanted to work in data science?
Mm, I think it found me. I think by chance my first job ever after college was business analyst, and I actually moved to the Netherlands, to Rotterdam, for it. And because I'm the kind of person, I didn't even quite know what it was. And I'm very, obviously fresh after college, very open. I always tend to find the positive in everything. The perception was that the data analysis job was a very boring one. And indeed, I did spend my days in Excel sheets, but I found it fascinating, right? And I know I'm going to romanticize it now, but guess I'm a bit of a nerd. Like, it's like weaving magic, right? Of course, not about the data, but about what can be done with it, right? It's just everything is attitude and perception. So what can you do with it, right? It's not like, oh, you have so many Excel sheets. What can you do, right? And it's about the insights. It's about filtering down possibilities, because loads of data is nothing, right? And that's what we have today in many contexts. Just data for everything. You're overwhelmed with data. But the exciting part about this is when you can find insights, right, and find nuggets of knowledge, right, and when you flesh out what is relevant, and then it just becomes useful. And then, obviously, from when I worked in tech companies like Google or LinkedIn, to mention a few, where data-driven decisions are just really the bread and butter from these companies, right? So I landed there just kind of by chance. But I find it fascinating that you have so much right around, and then it can be very confusing, right? And because you end up with very big files, but then you can get something really interesting out of it, right? So it's a bit of an investigation job. So I found it really exciting.
What do you see being the role of artificial intelligence in sport going forward?
Mm,
I say AI as kind of the intro to artificial intelligence and tech. that
Um,
integration?
so in general, like I'm very optimistic about the role of AI in sports, to be really honest with you. The way I see is that from the data perspective, AI is going to provide such an in-depth level of analysis at all levels that will help improve sports overall. Like from the inside, it can be insights from performance itself, right? Helping coaches to adapt training to the athletes. Just think of the amount of data I could provide in a given moment for a match, right? It's just fascinating. And a post-match debrief will be very different from what they have been until now. And from the business perspective, there's loads of revenue optimization possibilities, right? Like knowing the channel where someone's brand has been shown or mentioned and the demonstrated impact of this mention, right? I think for the first time, really, we can measure brand effectiveness from that perspective, right? And that has always been relatively complex. Like AI insights now make it much easier to track and optimize. But then, obviously, of course, one of the biggest impacts of AI will be on fan engagement, right? Because that's very individual. And with AI, the content we deliver to the audience will be way more personalized, and obviously, will create a deeper connection, and it will enhance the overall experience. I think that's going to be the key. Fan engagement is going to be absolutely complete game changer thanks to AI. But it's going to, it's going to affect everything, right? And I know people are very negative about AI. And yes, it's a bit scary because it's unknown, right? We don't know, and there's so many possibilities. It's just about using them for what is needed and what's good. Um,
Going off of that, how has AI and tech, as well as the name, image, likeness laws, changed the way that athletes brand themselves?
well, I mean, we live in a digital era, and most active athletes and audiences right now are digital natives. So we have to move with the times. I mean, what I mean by living in a digital era is that information is available at our fingertips on demand. It's immediate. We can get it with a few seconds. So when we want to search for something, we just find it right away. Which also means we have to be present and quick to, please our audience because they have high expectations that we have to meet. So we are always constantly on the spotlight. Um, every word, every message, like everything is scrutinized and put under the microscope. So we have to first understand our audience and also bring them along the way to build loyalty. And like it sounds like the scrutiny is very burdensome, but there are benefits, obviously, like the monetization of personal brands, right? The rise of personal brands is going to give them a chance now to partner with sponsors, right? Like the athletes are going to have so many possibilities now. Partnering with sponsors that truly align with their personality and their values. And obviously, we have social media that helps them connect directly with the audience. That's what the audience wants, right? They want to be part of the journey. They want to be part of the success, part of the team. And because this connection is interactive now they can talk, right, to the athletes, right? They can see what they like. They can see how the normal day looks like. It just creates a deeper bond between the athletes and the followers, and it helps them gain more followers, right? It's like, this is my personality, this is what I like, this is what I show. And it gets people more excited about sports, I think, because we have quite big personalities in sport, which is great. So they're very marketable, right? And before this social media and AI, it was not as easy to make them, so to gain such a broad audience. And now they have huge audiences, and there's more people, stepping in because they have the charisma and the aura to be, there. And obviously, they don't mind. Some people are more of an introvert, but they're happy to do so. And then they connect with the fans, they connect with the audience, and it gets them close, right? And again, it's very immediate, right? Like they are right away. I mean, Instagram Live or TikTok or whatever they're doing, and people can see them, right? And say, oh, this is the person I want to look up to, or I just, agree with this person's values. And it's great, right? So I think there's so many opportunities now for sports, for athletes particularly.
What does SportsBiz do, and what is your role in the organization?
So SportsBiz uses artificial intelligence, right? Magic word, and advanced analytics. And then we're trying to transform how brands approach sports sponsorship, right? We have a platform that's called Deep Sports Solutions, and it's designed to help brands get the most out of the investment that they do in the sports industry. And this is a market that is worth over $1 billion. So that's actually really interesting. And well, I met the CEO, Steve Forstein, and I love the conversation and his passion for sports because he has done so much. He's done a lot. It's such an impressive background and understanding of the sport industry. I just saw I could learn so much from him and the team because everybody's really experienced. They have just hired Michael Robichaud, who used to be the senior uh, SVP for global partnerships for MasterCard. So it's very exciting times for us at the moment. And well, what I'm doing is supporting them in their international efforts. And it's just great. It's fantastic learning experience, like getting to know the industry, the key stakeholders and organizations, how it functions, right, how it works. And it's just fascinating being able to combine my both passions, right, business and sports.
What is the difference between what they're doing in the US and you on a global scale?
It's not really different, right? Because I think there's many brands that are global and they have global events. So we support brands. It's not just brands; it could be our sweet spot because our solutions are very targeted for brands, but also for teams, organizations. And we are actually what we do is the same. It's just like bringing the awareness of of a different market, right? So it's a bit more on an expansion mode.
What do you think the potential is for sport business to be a global market?
I think it is actually already a global market. I think like sports, and I think this thanks to AI as well. It's actually it's helping sports become even more global because there is a huge effort now from uh, NFL, for example, to become international. And definitely they started with Ireland, I guess, because it's a big rugby culture, and they're getting more and more fans. And they're doing there's more events now in for NFL in Germany, in Spain, in the UK as well. So I think these are sports that have been always a bit more just national, right, than international. But they're really gaining lots of followers because again they can understand what the audiences need, what they want, getting something new, something fresh, a different perspective, and get to understand what people are talking about, who are the athletes. And like soccer has been quite international anyway, tennis the same, basketball relatively, but now it's just I think it's actually very international. Golf, for example, golf is a very international sport. So I don't think that the sport is not global yet, right? I think we are at a stage. It's just like we are actually bringing more different types of sports across. We're getting to understand different sports as well that were not as for example, in Europe, rugby, well, like American football, right? American rugby is not as well known, right? It's something completely new. But then again, people think like, no, we have enough with the sports that it's very traditional point of view. That we don't need new sports. We always need new sports, right? Like especially with the rise of women's sports. Oh no, we don't need that. And I had that someone say that. It's like, what do you mean we don't need? There's a different audience for every different sport. Like some people might enjoy watching golf, some people might hate watching golf, right? So there's definitely an audience out there. We just need to, be present and show it to them, right? So I think sport is global. We just need to be able to. It's just about marketing the different sports that there are.
The physical nature of sport is global. Do you think that the mental component of sport is a global conversation that's currently happening?
I don't think it's happening. You see, I think it's very important, but I still hear so many coaches disagreeing with the psychologists. and that's and that's shocking, right? They're like, no, this person needs a break and stuff. What do you think? Like, no, 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 they have to continue. They have to continue. It's like, okay, but then you're seeing the short term. You're not seeing the long term. And some coaches, I'm not going to mention them, but they're actually quite well known. They did not believe in sports psychology, right? It's like, oh no, they'll be fine. Of course, they'll be fine. But really, if you want someone to be at their best, the best is not the best physically. The best is physically and mentally, right? It's a whole. We are people. We are rational animals, and what that means, what rational means, that we think, and because we think, we overthink, and we have tendencies of doing one thing or reacting or have feelings, and that's something we cannot suppress. And if we pretend to suppress, we can pretend to suppress because we cannot suppress them, and then it's going to become to something dark, right? So I think that mentally we it's a bit of a stigma, and I love that Simone Biles talked about this, right? And people were crucifying her for that. Oh my God! And she doesn't want to do this anymore. I was like, she has the drive, she has the fire, she clearly has the talent. She has demonstrated that going back, but she's the only one that's brave enough to talk about how important it's been for her and for her development, for being at the very, very top. Being at the very top is very lonely, and that's something that we don't want to admit. It is lonely at the top because everybody wants something from you, and that's what it is, right? And that is in business as well. So it's very hard to trust people, right, when you have achieved so much. So you have to make sure you take care of yourself. And the mental part of sports, it's a long-term development. You have to develop, when we are developing young athletes as well, it's not about physically developing them, that's fantastic, but then mentally, because you see, especially when I monitor like tournaments, right, when these younger athletes, and you see them struggle, and you see them, obviously sometimes they throw a racket, and like behaviors that are not ideal, but then you just like talk to them, right, understand why, right? And sometimes there's a lot of frustration, and there's something more than just losing a point. It's not just losing a point, it's a fear of disappointing someone close to them, for example. So we need to work on these things, because it just, if we don't address these things, it just gets worse, it escalates, and it becomes something worse. So I think that we're very, very behind in terms of talking about mental health in sport, and the importance of having a strong mentality. You have to build it up. It's work. And it's sometimes it's saying like, oh, it's annoying because I have to do extra work on top of my, physical work on court, on the pitch. But then again, it's what's going to make you strong in every single aspect, because you have to be very strong mentally. And even one thing that I find very important, people forget about this type of athletes, referees. A referee has to deal with a lot mentally, not just being on the pitch and just like refereeing and dealing with conflict, which is normal, but there is a lot of personal attacks, right? They're being attacked constantly, and they're always there, right? Like, oh, there was a mistake by the referee, and that the person is there. There is a lot of mental. There's so much mental burden for a referee, and actually, they should be treated like athletes, I find, because they deal with this, and obviously, physically, they have to be running around. Most of them, like in rugby, for example, they have to be running around, or in soccer. But then again, the mental part of them showing up and people, criticize them, there's a lot of scrutiny for that, and there's a lot of mental strength. So it's different aspects that I didn't think actually until I went to the Nadal Academy, and we started talking about this, that we forgot them as part of the sports universe.
How do you rescue a mentally dysfunctional team?
Well, I mean, for me, first observing, right? What is the so-called dysfunction? Because it's good to understand it from the individual, but also from the collective point of view, because there might be, it might differ, right? And I do it in different formats. So I do one-to-one interviews, open team sessions. I have office hours, and office hours, when I say this, it's mostly a space that I give them to vent and rant, right? Like, okay, vent and rant here all you can, all you want, but only in this office, right? Or just only in this room, not outside of here. It's just like, okay, you want to let something out of your chest, do it, and now calm down and we discuss. Sometimes you have to, you need to. And then I use surveys as well. So the open team sessions are a bit of a risk sometimes. So I prefer to send a survey before taking on that session, and obviously you have to set the tone before, making very clear what is expected of the team and the way that's acceptable to communicate. And I say this because sometimes this can be seen by some team members as a forum to just complain or blame, and that's not productive at all, right? So that's one. On the individual level, when it comes to individual, right, it's important to know them as people, right? What are the values? What are the needs? What's the ambition, the capabilities, the strengths, weakness, motivation, commitment to the team, right? And what is the role within the team? Um, but like this is a process that takes a lot of time, right? Because otherwise we can be very robotic and just ask all the questions. But one has to genuinely care and getting to know that person, right, and let them talk, right? And because they need to want to share, right? And if we cannot make it force, and this is like part of building a community, right? It might be dysfunctional, but it's still a community. So we have to understand the individuals and then the team and the team dynamics, and as well understand the goals and the expectations, right? In my experience, the main issue is disconnect between the expectations of the organization or the leader and the team members. That's been the main issue of disconnect within teams or dysfunctional teams. And for me, a key point after this exercise as well, that once I get to know the team dynamics, and the individuals, is to address concerns. So if I meet with every person in the team and they hear nothing back from me, right? Now what? It's not helping, right? I have to get back to them, right? I have to get back to them, inform them what my plan is, what I intend to do with the given information, because I've been asking, right, how the team is, and they know they send someone into a team that feels dysfunctional. They understand there's something wrong, right? So I'm not there to blame or to judge. That's the main thing. But I have to share with them what I intend to do with the given information and what role they're going to play supporting me to achieve a common goal, right? Because we have to be in that together in the whole process. And then as a coach, observing and understanding team dynamics, right? And then have important to agree on a way of working, right? Agree on the way we're going to communicate, agree on boundaries, on conflict resolution, and also agree on what is going to make us successful, and also the plan of action. I think those are the main things to make the team. That's what I have experienced, right? Because I have been usually, especially in business, I've been given teams that were, I wouldn't say dysfunctional, but they were in a difficult space, right? They were in a difficult place, and for me, it was very important to, okay, number one, who am I talking to? Are you in? Are you checked out? Are you completely gone, right? Or do you still care about the team? Do you want to be here? Okay, right. And like, how do we get this team to work? It's not just me, right? It's not my job. It's us. We have to want as a community. We have to want to move forward. We will have to want to get somewhere together as a team, and bringing that message and getting them involved is the most important thing. Because if we just like someone telling, it's not about telling, right? It's about working things out.
What is the demographic that you predominantly work with through IDM or IDB performance?
So the client base is very diverse, right, in terms of industries and sectors. But there's one common thread, and it's just exactly what we discussed now: is underperforming teams, right? And this is the core challenge that we have addressed, whether it is in sports, in corporate environments, and sometimes in other team-based settings, right? These teams often struggle with aligning efforts. That's really the main issue. And sometimes it's just about team structure, right? That needs to be changed. And sometimes just a cultural change needs to happen. So basically, our focus is on identifying the root cause of this underperformance and implementing strategies to turn things around. And a key part of our approach involves not only addressing the immediate performance gaps, but also creating a sustainable team structure that can scale as the company or the team grows, right? So it's always about building a solid foundation, because scalability is crucial, right, for long-term success. And I want to be something that works long-term and not something that like is okay. It works now, but then there's a new change in the company or whatever on the team that usually happens, and then we have to start from scratch. There's no point, right? We have to go and create something that is sustainable in time. And also, we work with organizations to identify and build the right external partnerships, right? And this is mostly forming alliances that complements the team strengths and just filling gaps. But also, actually, this supports innovation, which is something that many companies talk about, like, oh, we want to do innovation. How? But sometimes they go too far. They make things too complex. Like, innovation doesn't have to be like inventing something completely new, but maybe it's improving something, right? Or just getting the team a different direction, as or just like creating a partnership. Where you have a gap here. How do you create a partnership and you expand different horizons, right? Do something new with it. So that would be your main demographics, but a bit of everything in terms of sectors and industries.
Those are all the questions I had prepared for you. Do you have anything that you think that I missed about telling your story, about anything that you'd like to add to the questions you've already answered?
Not really. To be honest, I didn't have much time to to think. But I think no, I think this, especially these functional teams, I think is quite an important one because I have that a lot. I have that the most, and many people are like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." It's like, well, start from the basics, start from the foundations, right? No, I cannot think from the top of my head. I cannot think of any at the moment.
Okay. If you think of anything between now and the middle of June, when this episode is slated to come out, send me a
Okay.
DM on LinkedIn. I can add anything. If anything exciting happens in your life that you'd like included, send me a message and I'll add that to the episode.